So I'm excited to welcome today's guest, Michelle Cutter, who is the VP of eCommerce at REI. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Oh, great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course, really excited for our conversation. So let's jump right in. Your career, it's taken you from startups and smaller companies to now being at a large national brand in REI. Tell us about your career journey and sort of touch on stops along the way, leading up to and including what you do now with REI.
Sure. I've been in the specialty retail space for the past 25 years. I've had various merchandising, marketing, and digital management roles in fashion, sport, and now the outdoors. Prior to REI, I was SVP of Global Digital and Commerce at Theory, which is a division of fast retailing, and I grew their direct-to-consumer business similarly to what I've done at REI. And then prior to Theory, I was VP of e-commerce and digital marketing at Tory Burch, and I had a similar role at Toomey and led their global digital business expansion and technology advancements. And before that, I've had lots of really great roles at some amazing brands like Reebok, Kate Spade, and Coach. And currently, I lead digital commerce for REI. And for those on the call that don't know REI, we're a specialty retailer in the outdoor industry, and we're headquartered near Seattle. And we were founded in 1938, and we're celebrating our 85th birthday this year, which is very exciting. And we have 23 million members. And so I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, but just really excited to be at REI and leading this great business.
That's fantastic. And happy birthday to REI.
Yes, happy birthday
85.
to REI.
Pretty crazy. So if you could just tell me a bit about the significant ways in which you've seen the world of e-commerce change throughout your career. I know you probably started before it was ever really a thing, but if you could kind of get into that, that'd be great.
Sure. So when I started in e-commerce, the industry was still relatively new. And companies that I was working for at the time still thought the internet was going to be a fad, especially as it related to e-commerce, and that people would never buy products online, especially technical or luxury products, and certainly not on their phones. And things have changed dramatically in the last 10 years with, the emergence and evolution of, digitally native customers. Amazon really changed the game. The DTC brands that evolved during that time, apps, social media, and then obviously the introduction of 5G. So it's really changed dramatically, I would say, over the course of the last 10 years. I think that's also important to say that stores, especially in specialty retail, continue to be an integral part of the customer journey. And that's certainly true for REI. And I'm sure but around 80% of purchases start online. So whether you actually do the transaction online or you do the transaction in a store, you're using digital as a way to help you through that shopping journey. So the interplay between stores and online, I don't think has changed too dramatically, but we know that digital is just a critical enabler of that experience.
Yeah, definitely. And started to touch on that idea of the digital and physical. I know you started with REI not long before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious how customers, sort of being unable to shop in physical locations affected e-commerce operations, and in what ways that moment in time kind of shaped how the team sort of approaches things or the future of digital operations moving forward.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I started at REI in 2019, just a few months before the pandemic. And so like all companies during that time, we had to pivot very quickly in real time. And we immediately had to focus on enabling digital experiences for those that wanted to continue to interact with our stores and our store associates, but with safety being the primary goal for both our associates and customers. And we also had to make sure that, that friction that always lives in a digital experience, we had to make sure that there was the least amount of friction possible during that time. So what we realized the most, I think, during this time was that crisis really does drive innovation. And I know you talk about this a lot on your podcast, but operational agility became critical. And it was a have to have versus a nice to have. And we were able to move a lot faster than we were pre-pandemic. And so, as an example of this, we were able to launch curbside pickup. So we did a prototype it was a matter of weeks after our store shut down. And pre-pandemic, that never would have happened. So the whole concept of progress over perfection and being able to rapid prototype and be able to get something to customers to be able to react to became really important and a new skill for us during that time. And we also did a prototype, and that was successful, by the way. And we continue to use that today and continue to evolve that. And we know that's something that customers really enjoy. And so that will continue to be a feature for us moving forward. We also tested something else, which we called virtual outfitting. And so our customers still obviously wanted to get outside and wanted to know what they needed and needed to be outfitted. So if you're going on a big, hiking trip and everyone was getting outside during the pandemic, or you're going on a big bike ride, you don't just need the bike, you need everything that goes with the bike. Or when you're going on a camping trip, you need all of the things that go with that trip. And so we, again, rapidly prototyped and launched virtual outfitting where customers could make an appointment, and we would literally have a Teams chat or a Teams video chat with customers to talk to them about where they were going and to really give them recommendations and help them on their way to getting outside. And that we ended up closing. Not to say that we won't bring that back. I think there were really interesting learnings that we got from customers during that time. And so that's something that we will be continuing to think through in the future. But again, that whole idea of rapid prototyping and quickly learning and either evolving that and making sure that it works better, or quickly realizing, okay, this probably isn't going to work long term. Making that decision relatively quickly has really helped us. So failure is a good thing, and learning with your customer in real time is critical to succeeding today in specialty retail. And I think the pandemic really sort of accelerated that learning for us.
That's really interesting. I guess I'd never really put two and two together, but it's so clear now that, not only was there the pandemic and you had to move very quickly, but people were going outside a lot more during the pandemic. And
that's right.
REI caters to those people. So really, really interesting insights. Thanks for that, Michelle.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So now that folks have been, shopping in person again, what would you consider some of the necessary ways in which you and your teams ensure that synergy or consistency between the in-store experience and the digital customer experience?
Yeah, I thought this was a really good question. So I'm sure this is true for, most of the retailers that I've worked for, this was true. But, a big portion of our customers at REI shop both in our retail stores and at REI or in our app. And there's just this natural expectation that there will be synergy between all of our channels. And they expect to be able to use digital channels to enhance the store experience. And they also want to make sure the digital experience has all the information they need about their local store. So we do work extremely closely with our stores and our stores team, as well as our marketing team, to ensure that our experience is consistent across all of our touch points and that the underlying data and systems is also connected. So, we work very, very closely together. So even though many of our employees are remote, we've been able to stay really connected and make sure that we're always thinking about that omni experience and thinking about that omni customer first. So how do they want to interact with us? And we know for a fact that they want to interact with us in all touch points. And so thinking in silos just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, that's really interesting and unique to REI because, of course, your customers own the brand. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yes.
But continuing to sort of dive into your work in customer experience, what are some of the major pain points that you're either actively working to solve for, or some of the breakthroughs that you've made along the way?
Yeah, this is a great question. Um, so we started this pre-pandemic, but again, it really ramped up during the pandemic. We have a very robust research and voice of customer program at REI, which helps us identify friction very quickly, almost in real time during the experience. And so what we've been thinking about a lot is how that friction impacts customers. And there are definitely some key areas that we are focusing on for the future. So one is inventory accuracy. So as you're shopping for a product, you want to make sure that, first of all, that the company has it in stock. So you want to make sure REI has what you're looking for. And you want to make sure that you can get it when you need it. So whether you're going to pick it up in the store or you're going to buy it online and have it shipped to you, you want to make sure that we have it and that you can get it in the time frame that you need it. So that's really important when you're going on a camping trip or you're going hiking or climbing, etc. So inventory accuracy for us is a pain point that we are actively solving and making sure that our customers are able to get that information in real time throughout the shopping experience. Another one that we're working on that is on the website today and will continue to evolve is personalization. So I'm sure lots of people have talked about this. And a personalization is something where you're able to give someone a relevant experience, a more relevant experience based upon the information that they opt in to provide to you. And making sure that we know what activities people enjoy to get outside, what activity level they are. So are they beginner? Are they intermediate? Are they advanced? All of these things help us really understand what type of content someone would like to see and what type of product someone would like to see. So that is something we're actively working on over the next few years to make sure that we can be as relevant to customers and members online as our green vests are in store. So you can, and those are our sales associates. So our sales associates, when you walk into our store, of course, are asking you, where are you going? What type of activities do you like to do? Where are you going to be doing those activities? And really tailor the outfitting experience in the store to what you want to do. So that personalization is going to be really important for us online to be able to connect those dots online and in store. Similar to that, we think a lot about activity outfitting. And we think about how do we give the right recommendations for products that go together. So how do we think about product lists or continue to improve our personalized recommendations and offers? We also want to make sure that customers over time can shop their values. So just by shopping at REI, they're shopping their values, but we want to make sure that they're aware and are able to participate fully in our eCommerce offerings, for example. So for those that don't know, we have an active used program that we call Resupply, and you're able to trade in your old gear. And so things that are sitting in your closet or in the garage, you're able to trade that in and have less impact on the earth. So how do they do that? How are they able to shop their values and making sure that that is incorporated throughout the shopping experience? Customers can also shop their values by us making sure that we're intertwining what we do with our foundation and having customers be able to really participate and being active in either legislation or be able to vote, et cetera, for different things. That is super important for us as well. So we want to make sure that customers are able to participate actively and our members are able to participate actively in protecting and getting more people outside.
I love that. Shopping your values. That's great. I really, really like that. So, Michelle, obviously there's a lot of data flowing through your e-commerce platform every day. How do you make sure that those complex data sets are managed successfully? Or I guess to put that in other words, what does successfully managing complex data sets look like to you and your team?
Yeah, so we all know that that's a challenge for all digital businesses today, especially as data sets grow and evolve. And you have structured and unstructured data that we're thinking about how do we ingest that on a at scale. And so an example that we think about, especially as it relates to personalization, is that we are gathering information about our customers through their transaction purchases, as well as all the different sources of data that we have. So if they contact our customer care team, if they go into the store, if they are able to do a buy online, pick up in store order, for example. So all of that data, structured and unstructured, and clickstream data is another example of that. All of that data needs to be able to be gathered and refined and be able to be usable for our front end teams. So it's really important as we think about personalization is all the different sources of data, being able to bring that into one customer data platform. And that is something that we are highly, highly invested in to be able to give us that golden record for a customer. So it's really important for us to be able to bring those sources of data together so that we're not seeing you as an example, 5 different versions of you. So you may have interacted with us by taking a trip. You may have come into our store. You may have bought online. All of those different things, we want to make sure we're seeing that as you, as one person and a valuable co-op, either member or customer, or versus seeing you as 3 or 4 different people. And so obviously the messaging that we send to you, the communication that we send to you, will always be much more relevant if we're able to combine that into that what we call a golden record. So that's something we're actively working on. It's ever evolving as new sources of data come online, but this is something that we know is going to power our personalization needs now and in the future.
That's really, really interesting. And now to kind of dive into the customer owned aspect of the co-op, because REI operates as a co-op. So, as we said, meaning it's owned by its customers. I'm wondering how you think that model sort of sets this company's e-commerce efforts apart from other companies who don't have that level of buy-in or personalization like you've been talking about.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we, being a member-owned co-op is really allows us to focus on the long term. And it allows us to not be thinking about quarterly returns, for example. So we're thinking about our shared values, not share value. So we believe in purpose over profits, and we also believe our profits fuel our purpose. So we are able to do so much more, so much good in the world, and to be able to protect the outdoors with our profits. And so our members do have a voice in what we do. They share in our profits and choose to give back every year. And so, as you mentioned, they're invested in the co-op success and in helping everyone get outside. So that being said, as part of the e-commerce business, our customers and members are extremely loyal. So they come back to the co-op and shop very frequently. They are able to, again, they participate very, very much so in our Voice of Customer program. And we feel like that loyalty only helps the co-op and the outdoors. So we have an engaged member base, and they're only going to help us in our success in the future.
As a member of the REI Co-op, I'd love to hear it. So, I know we talked about the 85th birthday that REI will be celebrating this year. So congratulations on that. That's really impressive.
Thank you.
In what ways is the company sort of, not to diminish what it's done in the past 10 years, but in what ways is the company up-leveling that commitment moving forward?
Sure. So let me tell you a little bit about that. So yes, we just celebrated 10 years of powering all of our stores, our distribution centers, and offices with 100% renewable electricity. And we marked that anniversary with a commitment to increase access to renewable energy for everyone by sourcing locally generated renewable energy in each of our 181 stores and supporting clean energy projects that also benefit homeowners, renters, and small businesses in those areas. So Generating electricity accounts for about 25% of carbon emissions in the United States, according to the EPA, and it makes it a significant contributor to climate change. And so with this new commitment, we aim to connect more people and organizations to renewable power like wind and solar, helping cut emissions and bringing the benefits of clean energy to more communities. So this is going to take several forms for us. We want to increase the number of co-op stores with solar installations so they can contribute to the decarbonization of local grids. And we're going to be working with utilities to offer renewable power programs to small and medium-sized businesses, and simplifying transactions with project developers so that businesses of all sizes can directly procure impact renewable energy. And so, for example, so REI is bringing locally produced renewable energy to communities where it operates. So we're working with the Middle Tennessee Electric to install a 1.1 megawatt rooftop solar array that will supply power to the retailer's new distribution center. And the co-op currently operates over 20 rooftop solar installations. So as it goes, it's important for all companies to commit to sustainability goals. We're all part of making sure that we're protecting the outdoors for future generations. And so it's so important that all companies, with REI, I think really leading the way here, all companies really commit to sustainable, impactful programs so that, again, we can ensure future generations can safely and enjoy the outdoors.
That's great. Obviously, sustainability, huge, challenge for, I think, a lot of retailers, but it's good to hear that REI is kind of leading the charge in that way.
Absolutely.
So that's very cool. So on top of that, I'm curious to hear your opinion on what you think the most significant challenges that businesses in the retail industry are facing today.
Yeah, this is a good question. I think, in my opinion, the most significant challenges that the retail industry faces today are just continued supply chain challenges. I think that's the most immediate challenge that we're facing. And then ever evolving customer expectations. I think that, we are in a place where technology is evolving faster than we know how to manage it. So when you take an example like a Chat GPT, how our business is going to use that and use it responsibly? What are the right ways to use it? I think that's something that we're all trying to, again, we're learning about it in real time. And I think that customer expectations, as well as these technology gains, are really going to drive, again, future innovations, et cetera. But I think it's a serious challenge for us. How do we continue? We all have underlying systems, underlying infrastructure. How do we continue to evolve and make sure that moves with our customer?
I love that. Very important stuff. So all kinds of companies, especially digital companies, are using all sorts of different tools to, project manage and things like that. I'm curious, what is one or a couple tools in your day-to-day that you absolutely could not work without?
Yeah, so this was a good question also. So I thought about this a lot, and instead of thinking about, our underlying technology or different, systems that we use, the one that I wanted to bring up was actually Microsoft Teams. So we are a big Microsoft Teams company. It truly saved us during the pandemic. So it wasn't just, and I think I mentioned this earlier, but it wasn't just a tool that we used internally. So obviously it completely revolutionized how we worked together. And it also enabled us to be able to think about our workforce very differently, where we are able to have remote team members now, which pre-pandemic really wasn't. It was more the exception versus the rule. So not only was it that, so it really, completely revolutionized how we worked, but it also was able to be used for customers. So I guess, again, in that virtual outfitting example, we were able to use Microsoft Teams as the place where we could meet up with customers as well. So it helped revolutionize and be able to rapidly prototype and with customers to say, hey, how can we connect with customers like a FaceTime, like any a video chat, but Teams really helped us in that way. And then, of course, as I mentioned, it revolutionized how we work together as a company. So it was pretty amazing.
Starting to wrap up here, I'm just curious because obviously nobody can predict the future, and you've touched on a little bit of like how you've been able to adapt, through the pandemic and continuing on. But through your experience with the industry and the change that you've seen through it all, what do you predict are going to be some of the major trends in digital retail or e-commerce operations, like 5 to 10 years down the line?
Yeah, I think that I've thought about something and I'm calling it sort of commerce next, because I think that what we're starting to see is almost a commoditization of e-commerce. And what I mean by that is you have to be able to run a great e-commerce site. That's just part of doing business today. And you have to be great at the e-commerce fundamentals. But technology advances, I would say, over the last 5-10 years, in terms of being able to do that. You don't need a host of engineers to be able to do that. There are really, really great platforms out there that enable someone to basically set up a website very, very easily with little to no knowledge of code or engineering to be able to put up a great website. And so that to me says, oh, this space is super mature at this point. And what does that look like? And how can we look at our customers a little bit differently to see how they're shopping? And I think what we're seeing is that, social media has really merged with commerce. And we don't see it as much here in the United States, but you definitely see it in China, which usually gives us a clue as to what could be coming here, coming up in the next several years. And so what you see is that, especially customers that are Gen Z, how they interact with the world and discover product and experience product and find brands and find things that they like to do is different than previous generations. So when you think about that and you think about them as a generation representing 20% of the overall population, and they're just recently coming into their own in terms of disposable income and being able to start to really impact commerce, I do see that is really going to change how we all shop. And so when you think about TikTok and you think about other ways that YouTube and the merging of customer and commerce and in that space. So I don't think we've fully figured it out yet, and people are getting used to this new technology, but I think that is really going to change the way we shop. And so, we'll see how it goes, but I think that is something that really we just we haven't seen it yet. And I think it's truly going to change commerce in the next 5 or 10 years.
That's great. Well, it sounds like REI is in the right hands. So I have no doubt everything will go smoothly down the road. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to hit you with a bit of an icebreaker question that we use here at the company typically for new employees. Your first car, your first job, and your first concert.
Oh, geez. Okay. Okay. My first car was a Volkswagen Rabbit. And it was a stick shift. And a lot of people don't know even what that is. So I'm certainly dating myself, but, yeah, I learned how to drive on a stick shift car, which was a really interesting experience. My first job was at a place called Lenape Park, and it was in Mays Landing, New Jersey. And it was a park that it rented out. You could rent out the park for like family and corporate events. And I worked there when I was 13, and I was hired as a ride operator and also helped manage the ticket office. So that was my first job. And then my first concert was REM, and I saw them in Veteran Stadium, which is no longer there. Veteran Stadium in Philadelphia.
Well, that's the first concert is about the coolest one I think we've got yet. So we'll end on a high note there. Michelle, where can people follow your work, or if you have a LinkedIn or anything like that? Where can
Yeah,
people find
sure.
you?
Absolutely. So, of course, rei.com. You can absolutely follow and check us out and what we're doing on rei.com and our app. And then you can follow me. I'm most active on LinkedIn. So it's Michelle Cutter, and you can find me there.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again, Michelle, for joining us today. I can't wait to see everything that REI has in store moving forward. I really appreciate you taking the time. Take
Thank
care.
you so much, Josh. It was great. Thank you.